Digitalna revolucija, velika složenost poslovanja i još veća brzina kojom se mijenjaju biznis pravila, pojava novih profesija, ali i novih generacija, takozvanih milenijalaca, rođenih u posljednjih 15 godina prošlog vijeka, glavni su elementi dinamične ekonomske scene našeg vremena i nove paradigme poslovanja koja je u nastajanju. Na ove teme u našem regionu upečatljivo govori Habib Lešević, preduzetnik, edukator i inovator porijeklom iz Crne Gore. Nakon 10-godišnjeg rada na univerzitetima u Britaniji, Francuskoj i Njemačkoj, Lešević je u Berlinu osnovao agenciju J2C, koja pomaže kompanijama i pojedincima da se prilagode novoj biznis paradigmi.
Mr. Lešević, you are an accomplished entrepreneur, innovator, educator, public speaker. In all these roles, you have been addressing an important contemporary topic, and that is how to survive in the 21st century business context. So, what is going on actually in today's business? It seems that we are facing a major shift. What is this shift about?
What we're witnessing is we're seeing a shift away from what I would call a mechanical time to a networked time. What that means, the last large revolution we had in the business world was the Industrial Revolution. And the Industrial Revolution came up with the invention of the machine. And of course the machine was very important for us as humanity, but was even more important during the time, or at least equally as important, was that the machine required of us and gave us an entirely different way of organizing ourselves. We had to work out how to organize around the machine. So from that came what we would call, from a systemic perspective, a organization according to the metaphor of the machine, which means vertical hierarchies, high degrees of specialization, very linear processes, where predictability and planability is very important, and very, very large structures, scale structures. And what we're witnessing now is we're witnessing the emergence of what I would call networks and the network metaphor, a different way of organization. So the technology is challenging the way we are working with each other and for each other, and it's opening up new opportunities to interact with one another.
You say that relationships are where the value is being created in business. Could you give us a couple of examples?
The major challenge, I think, is with the emergence of this new technological paradigm and this new organizational paradigm, is that relationships are becoming more and more important. And through that we have an increase of what we would call the relationship density between the parts and in a society, in an organization and an economy. And with that increase in density, there's an increase in complexity. And it becomes more and more difficult to organize and predict our environment. And I think this is the biggest challenge we face at the moment, not just in business, but also in society and in politics, but also in business. It's a huge problem. The opportunities are very clear. We have the opportunity to really leverage the power of connections and the power of the human asset in that sense inside of the organization. And I think that's probably one of the biggest opportunities for us, to really put the human being back into the center of our economic efforts and use the full power of that. Because in the last 300 years, we have more and more degraded the human being to a production resource that is limited to a single activity or specialized activity, not really leveraging the power of relationships. There's a lot of talk around the new rules of the business world and the newest business models all being platform-based. And if you look at examples such as Uber or Airbnb, that are effectively top providers in the individual field, Uber in mobility, Airbnb in broad housing, they don't own any assets. All they do is they provide the platform that connects the asset owner with the demand in the market. So Uber will take drivers that have cars in a city like London and connect them with people that want to go from A to B. So the power, the channel power, is no longer with the one that owns the asset, but with the person that establishes the connections. That's probably one of the best examples that I can give you on that particular topic. And I think it's very important to also realize this is just now coming up. These are only the first expressions of this shift.
In this new context, it is perceived that big corporations are struggling. Why is that so?
The typical issues that corporations have in this context is that their control over the market as it used to be is waning, is fading. For one, because the boundaries between market and industry are blurring more and more, and the boundaries between hierarchies, producer, consumer, and top level, bottom level, are also blurring with the emergence of these networks. So what's happening is the market is becoming more and more emboldened. It's becoming braver in a way. And it's also becoming more attuned to the language of corporations. So it no longer just buys any message you give them, and it no longer believes just anything you say. It challenges these things. So that's one. That combined with the issue that corporations for the last 50, 60 years have really focused on shareholder value first and then market value second, creates a situation where the market actually recognizes when a product comes to market that's not geared towards them and that's not really long-term creating value for them. So corporations are struggling with that on one side, that's market side. Internally, they're struggling in the sense that the younger generations are becoming harder and harder to hold, to keep in the jobs that are given to them. The average millennial spends 2 years on a job before they move on. So job loyalty is extremely low. That's because they don't have the attitude anymore that our parents had. And I say our parents because I'm a millennial also, where you kind of think, thank God I've got a job, I'm fine, I got to be grateful to the company. No, they actually turn around and say, what can you do for me? And what is it that I am contributing towards? And if they don't believe in what they contribute towards, or if they feel that you don't believe in what they are supposed to contribute towards, they're off. So corporations are struggling on one side, market side, to keep up with the changing realities in the market. And they're struggling employment side, to keep the talent in the company. And what that does is effectively, and they're struggling organizationally as well, in terms of the structure that they have, because the traditional corporate structure is set up to facilitate prediction and planning. So I scan my environment, as I mentioned earlier. I scan my environment, I understand which variables are important, and on the basis of this understanding, I project where I want to go, and then I write a 5 or 10-year plan to get there. And then I distribute this plan through the organization. So with the environment that we're facing, the high complexity environment, the speed that we have in our environment, this sort of approach to dealing with the market is becoming more and more impossible. And this is the third aspect where organizations struggle. They struggle to read the signals of the market in time and convert that signal into meaningful value in time. So these are problems. And this is where the space opens up for startups. Startups are usually much closer to the market. They're much more open to what the market has to say. They're much less invested in what they already have, because usually they don't have anything, so they have a clean slate. And they're usually much quicker in turning around ideas into products, because the paths of communication in a startup are very flat. Usually a startup is 1 to 4, 5, 6 people. So if I need to get something done, I ask you by your first name and I ask you, can you get this done for me? In a corporation, I'll put down a request. I have to go into another department. I have to make sure, and I have to schedule a meeting in the 7th floor and see if they let me in. So there you go. That immediacy is what gives the startups a huge advantage now.
So they are more mobile, they are more flexible.
A metaphor I hear a lot, especially from the corporate space actually, they usually speak of themselves as big oil tankers, and they speak of startups as speedboats, because that's the main difference they perceive. But the flexibility is one thing. The other thing is really the ability to listen to what the market actually needs. I think that makes a big difference as well, because startups have to listen to what the market wants, and they don't have shareholders often that they need to satisfy. Whereas for a startup, the primary target has to be the value creation for the market, because without that, there's no business. Yeah, for a corporation, usually the primary target is profit. And then the question is, how do we get it? And even though that's a subtle difference, it makes a big difference at the end. I like to quote, I'd like to repeat a quote that's usually associated with Peter Drucker, who was a famous Austrian management thinker, a wonderful guy. Apparently, he was once asked at a conference which way to organize, in a matrix or vertically, or in silos, what was the most efficient way. And Peter Drucker took a moment and then answered by saying, unless someone somewhere buys something off you at some point, you don't have a business. And this was a very interesting answer, because effectively what he said is, you're trying to build the 7th floor before you build the foundation. For you to have a business, someone in the market needs to want what it is that you have. And corporations often have lost touch with that particular question. And it's more like, what is that we have that we can push to the market, rather than asking, what does the market want that we can deliver?
Coming back to millennials, who are they and how do they challenge the business world?
What's so unique about the millennials is that they don't seem to be affected by the, I will almost call it the capitalist dream that has been sold to us for the last 50, 100 years. They don't seem to be as profoundly affected by that dream as the generations before them. So in a way, they're a lot more critical towards the messages that they receive during their education. Try to find a good job, try to make good living, try to build your house, try to consume as much as you can. They seem to have an intuitive understanding that there's more to life. Yeah. So in a way, to use that slightly esoteric language, it seems that they're a lot more spiritually attuned to their not just their material needs, but their inner needs also. And I think they are much more aware of this conundrum, of this tension between material pursuit and emotional, spiritual well-being. So they ask entirely different questions than generations before them. As I said earlier, I'm also a millennial, but I'm at the brink of it, you know. So I know the old world, the old reasoning in that way, and I know what kind of tension it creates with this newer way of thinking. I like to mention an experience I had at university in regards to the millennials. I gave my first lecture in 2007, and it was an entrepreneurship course. And I asked a space of maybe 140 students, how many of you want to be in finance? You know, and at that time maybe 98% put their hand up. This is in London, you know, so no surprise there. And I would ask them, how many of you want to be in marketing? And there's always 2 or 3 that put their hand up. And I asked, how many of you want to be entrepreneurs? And there's maybe 5 or 6 kids that put their hand up. That's it. So I asked this question every year. And every year it was more and more that want to be entrepreneurs. In 2016, I gave my last lecture, I believe it was 2016. And I asked again a room of 140 people, how many of you want to be in finance? And there's maybe 3 or 4 hands that go up, you know. How many of you want to be in marketing? There's always the same 3, 4. And then I ask, how many of you want to be entrepreneurs? And the whole room raises their hands. Even the ones that said they want to be in finance put their hand up in the end. So, but when I then ask, what does that mean to you? Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? The things they say is not, I want to start a business and I want to make millions. The things they say is, I want to work on something I believe in. You know, I want to feel the impact of my work. I want to know where my work is going. I want to work with people with whom I am on eye level. You know, I want to be the boss over my own time. You know, I want to love what I do and do what I love. These are the kind of things that they answer. So when you look at that, that's not necessarily related to starting a business. I think why they associate it with starting a business is because they don't believe they can have these things in established structures. That's why they put their hand up and say, I want to start my own business. But they also have the spirit of creativity in them. I think they have the spirit of, it's the second part why I think they will say they want to be entrepreneurs, because they have that spirit of wanting to change what they see needs to be changed. So I think they are much more critical of the realities that we've created for ourselves over the last 30, 70 years, 60, 70 years maybe. And yeah, these are some profound changes that I experience in this younger generation. And I actually feel the younger they get, the more radical they get. You know, it's getting harder and harder to convince the young generation that they should settle for a good job behind a nice desk, making a decent salary so that they can get a decent car and a decent home and just live a decent life. They seem to be a lot more interested in the volatile aspects of life. Yeah.
You often talk about managing value versus creating value. What is this difference about? Why do you stress this?
That question, if you allow me, that question I would take one step deeper and ask, what's the purpose of our economy? You know, what's the purpose of our economy? What is our economy? The word oikonomia, you know, from Greek means the management of the resources for the well-being of the household. So what's the purpose of our economy? It's to create value and well-being for society. Now, if I talk about value and well-being, for the last 300 years, that means more consumption, right? But I like to think of it in terms of someone sitting on a tree on a branch and thinking, I have to get some wood, and they're, you know, sawing away that particular branch they're sitting on. When we speak about well-being, we always must look at well-being in the context of human evolution. We must look at it in the context of human evolution, because what does it mean to be well for 5 minutes but to be miserable for a year, right? So what does it mean to be well for a lifetime but be miserable for an epoch, a human epoch? So we must ask that in the human context. And Aristoteles actually is the philosopher who gave us the word oikonomia for the first time, and he distinguished between oikonomia and krematikos. Oikonomia was the use of human productivity to improve the well-being of all participants in the household. Krematikos was the use of human productivity to amass resources and goods. Yeah? So today, if you look at the way our economy works, we're much more in krematikos than we're in oikonomia. It's much more about capturing resources than it is about creating value. So that's a big problem. And this is when we talk about managing value. Really, the question is about extracting value. How do I extract profitability out of existing resources without much thought about whether this is really valuable to the market or not? And I will have to go half a step to the side also to ask, what is even value? You know, when we ask about the difference between creating value and managing value and why that's important, we must ask, what is value? You know, if I look at Marxist theory, value is inherent to the object. You know, a tree is valuable whether we like it or not. And there's some truth to that, actually. A tree is valuable whether I see it or not. But the problem is, business is human, and our productive activity is very human from a human perspective. If I don't see the tree's value, I will chop it down to make another piece of furniture that you can buy in the shop. So another school of thought has discovered this, the Austrian school, they're called marginalists. They discovered that, yes, value is actually subjective. Depends on how I perceive it. Okay? But this thought is dangerous, because if I believe that value is purely subjective, the way I create value now is no longer tied to the object. The way I create value now is what do I do with your perception? And this is where advertising comes up as a way to create value. It doesn't matter whether the thing in itself is good or true or beautiful for you, as long as you believe that. So I can make something that is irrelevant, and then I can put a lot of money into manipulating your perspective as to what the thing can do. And I think we've fallen into that trap over the last 50, 60 years, you know. So when we talk about creating value, we talk about understanding the customer truly, understanding the need, understanding the environment, and producing something that is true, good, and beautiful, that is relevant for them in this context, and that can help them evolve and progress in this context. So I think entrepreneurs have to do that to survive. I think corporations can get away with not doing that and still survive. So I think especially on the corporate plane, we have some work to do to to refocus the reason for our activity. And I believe the same goes for our economy as a whole. We must shift the global economy towards an economy that is focused again on creating value for its people rather than extracting value from its people. In other words, an economy that serves us and not one where we have to serve the economy.
And this is actually what you are doing for a living. You are a co-founder of Berlin-based innovation agency Journey to Creation, J2C. What kind of journey are you taking both people and organizations on?
We take our clients on evolutionary journeys, if you like, yeah, and we do that by working with their staff, working with them on their projects, working with them on their structures, transforming processes, transforming structures, changing mindsets in the organization, changing skills and methods in the organization as well. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff we do.
What was the evolutionary journey you appreciated the most?
One of my favorite stories is with the German food corporation that brought us in to explore how they could transform within the trend of digitalization, what is in Germany often called digitalization, which is actually the shift towards the network society that we talked about earlier. We kept exploring what they need to do. And we went from a very unpersonal, very structure-orientated perspective on what needs to change, bit by bit, also due to budget constraints, but on their side, we moved to something that in the end was extremely human. They said, okay, we're going to send 8 of our managers to you, and we're going to do 6 months of personal coaching for these 8 managers, and we're going to start our transformation from the inside out, yeah, not from the outside in, and we're going to start with the individuals, not with the big systems. And we had tried some things with them before on a systemic level, but none of it really had an impact. Then they sent us the first 8 managers. Now, this is a global corporation. It's not a small business. So 8 is nothing, you know. They sent us the first 8 managers, and for 6 months they came every month, group of 8, for 2 days to Berlin, to be in our office, be with us, and then each manager would have 1 hour to 2 hours with one of our coaches to talk about, you know, their leadership issues and their life as such. And after 6 months, the next 8 would come in. And the CTO called me up after, I think, 8 or 9 months, and he told me, it is incredible what impact these little changes on the individual plane have had on the whole system. This is a very patriarchically structured corporation. It's very top-down. In this particular department of the managers that came to see us, they flattened hierarchies, they shortened paths of communication, they transformed the office space, they set up a company-wide podcast, all driven from within the within the people within the corporation, so nothing from the outside. And they've really changed the way they understand themselves and the way they work with other departments in the organization. So this one is one of my favorite stories because it's so small. It's so small and it's so human, you know. We intervened on an individual level with 8 people. It's nothing. But these 8 being profoundly touched and having had profound insights for themselves as beings in that organization went out and really made a difference to this whole system. It's now caught on so much that actually there's waiting lists to join this program. And now on the group level, they're becoming aware of this and they're asking what is happening here. How can we transfer this to the bigger part of the corporation?
How did you achieve the results in this particular case?
Our space is very unconventional, and the way we work is very unconventional. So that already has an impact on them because they're used to very structured work in the cubicle, you know, yeah, very, very linear. We don't work like that. So already being 2 days in the space had an impact. They would each have 1.5 hours to 2 hours of a personal coaching meeting with us. So this is the mindset, the one-on-one work with the individual, where we would sit down and look at a particular personal or professional issue they have on a character level, not on a method or skill level that they wanted to change. And we would work on that for 6 months through reflection and experimentation. Out of these meetings, usually they would take away homework that they would have to practice in their on their job and in their lives, and we would organize usually at least one event for them in Berlin when they would visit. And this would reach from conferences and talks to art projects or art intervention that we would send them to. So anything that would challenge their current, what we call the radius of possibilities, right? The perspective on what it means to create, to work, to cooperate. And again, these are small things, they're not big. You know, we don't have a secret formula. You know, we just tackle these aspects. But you do this often enough, you know, you change something in the human being. You change something in the human being, you increase the chance that that human being will change something in the system that surrounds them.
You have said that your agency was very unconventional. Your working space is unconventional. Your working methods are unconventional. Could you give us some examples?
J2C is organized in what we call a holarchy. Holarchy comes from the Greek word holon, and it means a holon is something that is in itself whole, but at the same time part of a larger whole. But as it's part of our larger whole, it gets to be whole in itself. What does that mean? We want every employee in our company to have the full spectrum of possibilities available to them. That also means the full spectrum of decision-making available to them. That also means the full spectrum of experience available to them. So we do not have formal roles in the company. We don't have formal leadership in the company. We don't have managers in the company. We don't have bosses. Yeah? We have only people. And all the people have the same rights. We have 4 roles in the company: strategic partner, project lead, coach, support. That's the only roles we have. With one client, I can be a strategic lead or strategic partner. In another job, I am a support. That is me as one of the founders of the company. So the roles are not permanent. Which is quite particular because it means that the relationships between the workers are never on a formal level. They always have to be on a human level. You always connect to the human being and not to the role that you're dealing with. We don't track working time, so we don't track office time, so people can come and go when they want, how often they want. We don't track holiday times, So we have people that go on holiday to Brazil for 3 months in the middle of the year because they need it, and that's fine. Every employee has access to our finances. Every employee can invest. Every employee can also spend money on their personal development, no questions asked. There's no approval process in that way. That's not completely accurate. I'll specify in a moment. Up to 5,000 euros, I believe, our employees can spend freely every month. Up to 10,000 euros, one person in your organization needs to agree that it's a good idea to spend. Anything above that, you need 4 people that agree that it's a good idea, and then you can go ahead and do it. Our space is completely modular, so we don't have fixed desks. Everything can be moved around. We're an old post-production building in Berlin, so we have 2 cinema rooms, which are also office spaces. One of our co-founders places great emphasis on personal well-being and health. So he's gone out of his way and our way to make sure that our employees and our co-workers don't just work hard, but also relax hard. So we have yoga classes that take place in our office free of charge for our co-workers. We have weekly massages at the office that happen. Anyone can sign up. It's for free. We do regular getaways for our employees, so they can go to places with us. And we do something every 2 months we call Internal Day, which is a gathering where we bring the whole company together and just facilitate the connectedness and the relatedness between the people in the organization, because we live off personal relationships in the company. We don't have formal hierarchies. We don't have formal communication channels. We have centralized communication channels. We operate on a full transparency basis.
Even though your approach is unconventional, you are very successful, and numbers are confirming that. How many employees do you have, and what is your yearly turnover?
We started off as 6 people 2.5 years ago. We are now 42 people on fixed contracts, full-time. We have around 70 plus people that are working with us part-time or freelance, but draw the largest part of the salary from us. So we have around 120 people that we manage this way. We turned over last year just under 5 million. We've been doubling our turnover year on year. So I can't tell you what we're doing this year so far, but you get the idea. We are, in our industry, at our size, we are in the top 10% in terms of profitability. So we pay salaries that are about 25% higher than the average in our industry. So we pay top-level salaries to our employees, and yet we are more profitable than most of our competitors. In our first year, we made over 1 million euros of profit in our first year as a company. We are completely self-funded. We have no external funding whatsoever. And I think the things I'm most proud of is, number one, we're managing more than 5 people in this way. And I personally actually believe we can scale up to a couple hundred people, no problem in this way. And I'm very proud of our profitability. Because we spend money left and right on our employees and our employees' well-being, to a point where I think someone that looks at it from an external perspective would say, "What the hell are you doing?" I actually had the CEO of an insurance company who was our client, who then became a friend. I once laid out to him what we do and what we spend. He said, "Are you out of your mind? What are you doing? You want to die a poor man? Why are you doing this?" But when I showed him how we are performing on the market, he was very impressed and he was surprised. So in a way, it sounds like we're playing stupid games and experimenting, but actually we realize our number one value are our people. I always say business is not B2B, business is not B2C, business is H2H, it's human to human. So we have accepted in our economy for too long that our employees are unhappy at their job. That's become the status quo. I'm unhappy, I'm uninspired, but I'm getting paid, so it's fine. No. We want the payment to be the last thing you think about when you work for us. You should be excited about working for us. You should feel really good. I actually have a funny story. My dad came to visit last year, and he wasn't exactly sure what it is that I'm doing. He kept telling me, "Why don't you get a real job?" So then finally he comes to visit, and I got to show him what we actually do. And I took him to one of my talks, and the talk was inside of a 3-day program that one of our employees was actually running for us with a client. And that employee, female employee, had the lead in this project. So anyway, we come on day 3 when my talk is happening. We arrive there. Our employee welcomes us. I sit down. I give my talk. We're done. We walk out. And then my dad asked me, so you work with these other companies, right? They help you with the event? I said, no, they're all our people. He said, yeah, okay, I understand. The guy's employed for you, but that girl, she's from another company. She has her own company, right? And I said, no, why do you think that? She works for us. She said, I know she works for you, but you buy her company to work for you, right? And I said, no, she's an employee for us. She gets a salary, that's it. She doesn't have a company. I said, why do you ask? She said, because she's so motivated. It makes no sense. She's motivated like an entrepreneur, you know? She doesn't seem like an employee. Why does she do all that extra work? What's up with her? You know, that made me very proud because we have people that draw a regular salary that act like they own the company. And maybe in other companies that would be a problem. For us, we want exactly that. We tell all our employees, you're not an employee, you're an entrepreneur here. We want you to feel like this is your company. You own this, you can run this, you can make all decisions on a level. And I think that's also why we are performing so well on the financial plane, because our people work with the energy and the enthusiasm and the inspiration of an entrepreneur and not of someone who just draws a salary.
Well, you have been doing many experiments and making many risky moves. In a hindsight, what was decisive for your success?
I was fighting a lot of this stuff for most of the period while we were discovering this stuff. I'm trained much more classically. I have a strong personality in that way. And, you know, I believe I know the answer to all the questions. So I was very much fighting all of this stuff with my colleagues. I'm only one of 6 we are now, 6 shareholders in this company. So I'm not the only one who has a say. So I was resisting most of this, and I'm really happy that I lost these battles because now we are where we are, and I realize how good it is. I think what helped us get there, and I wouldn't say we're there yet. We're still exploring. We're still moving towards new forms all the time. Is for one, the willingness to experiment, which means also the willingness to lose it all. Yeah. You know, I think this was very important, and I'm really grateful to my partners for being so brave, yeah, and for placing the experience and the pride in trying it over keeping what you have and the fear of losing stuff. Yeah. You know, they are real explorers, and they love to, they love to push the edge. Yeah. They love to push the edge. Then I'm really proud of us for letting go of our ideas when we realize they don't work. We've tried a few iterations, and once or twice we made some decisions where after 2 or 3 months we realized this is going to cost us our head, you know, and we were really quick in letting go there. So I'm glad that we were able to manage our egos in that way so far. Yeah. And not say, no, I decided this, so I'm going to go with this. Yes, exactly. So it's going to be good even if it takes me to my grave, you know, because it's mine. Yeah. And I think the third one, and this one is the hardest one, and I think the most important one, the willingness to go into conflict with one another and be honest. You know, I think this is so underestimated. We have a tendency, especially in social realities, in our social life, to avoid conflict, or if we go into conflict, to go into conflict from a lower chakra, you know, from a lower level energy, out of ego, out of aggressiveness. But you know, we have this terminology in the company. We distinguish between what we call ego view and eco view. You know, so we challenge each other all the time to go into conflict on an eco level, eco view. So what's best for the whole, not what's best for me. Yeah. And then to have the bravery and the courage and the trust and the love to step up and say, I think this is wrong. You know, so we've had some, in the process, we've had some, very, very, very tiring and very difficult confrontations on partner level. But I think these actually make us better. And the fact that we trust each other in these, we don't stop trusting each other, even when the heads clash. I think this is probably the most important bit for us as a company. Yeah, for us as a collective. Yeah.
When I visited your agency website, I was surprised, and I must say I was engaged by the way your co-workers are introducing themselves. There was a strong personal, strong emotional ingredient there. Is that actually intentional? Is that part of your business concept?
Our policy, when we started hiring, we were hiring by competence and by methodical knowledge. So what education did you have and what kind of skill set do you have? But we realized pretty quickly that that's actually not the right way to do it for us, because the skills can be learned, but the story behind the person is what makes the difference. And the nature with which the person engages into relationships is what makes a difference for us. So what we do now is we say we don't hire skills or resources, we hire people. And we don't look at your education really. I mean, if you have something that's related, okay, that helps, but it's not relevant. We look at your life story. Do you live in what we call an entrepreneurial life? Have you dared some things? Have you been out there and done some exciting things? Have you had some strange experiences? We have one woman that works with us who's phenomenal, and her story is phenomenal. She worked for government, NGOs and government-related companies from Germany for years. She helped rebuild Haiti after the occurrences there. She worked in Yemen. She worked. We have one guy that used to train UN forces for kidnapping situations. So they would set up these settings where they would simulate kidnappings. So these people don't really do the work that we do, but they have lives that show that they dare to make decisions on their own and that they dare to step into the space of the unknown. So we do that. Our job interviews, we don't really have job interviews in the classical sense. Anyone who's interested to work with us, we invite them to come by and just meet as many people in the company as possible. We have a central online tool where we are constantly in discussions as a company. So everyone's participating, in these conversations. So if we see someone we like, someone will write in and say, "Have you met this guy? I think he's really good. I think this woman's got potential." And then just a few of us will meet them. And if one of us thinks that person should work for us, then we can hire them. It doesn't even have to be a consensus. We wanted to get away from consensus culture. We didn't want to have everyone to agree before someone comes in. Yeah, so we do that. So we look at what's the story of this person in life? How have they lived their life? What's the manner of this person? Can they interact? Can they have an eco view? Can they go into conflict? Are they trusting? Are they maybe closed off? And what would this person contribute to our culture? These are kind of the things that we look at, And in the rarest occasions, do they have the skills we need right now to fill a gap somewhere? But that one actually, in the past, has burned us once or twice because we brought skills in that didn't have the same psychology, the same mentality, and then we had to get rid of that.
You are of Montenegrin origin. You spent some time here in Montenegro. You spent holidays here in Ulcinj every year. In one of your interviews, you said that Montenegro needed culture that appreciates effort, innovativeness, and surprisingly, failure. Why do we need failure appreciation?
We are a very patriarchal society, in essence. And in patriarchy, it's about being the face of the family and being having control over everything and always never being out of control, never being out of ourselves, always in that space. That's a very harsh expectation towards oneself, because that also means I can't leave the space that I know. I can't leave the space that I know, which means it becomes very hard to experiment, which means it becomes very hard to discover something new. I feel we are tied to our traditions very often, not out of love for the tradition, but out of fear of what could come out there next, because we give up that control. So when I say appreciation for failure, I think, often we don't value enough what failure can mean. What is failure? It's an opportunity, and I don't say this in a cheesy way. Failure is very hard. Failure is hard for the soul, for the ego. Failure is sometimes hard for the environment that we are embedded in because it has impact on the people around us. But failure is the opportunity to learn also. And learning is what makes us progress. I was in Tirana yesterday and I read in a restaurant they had a quote. It said, I forgot who it was, Mahler, I think, the quote by Mahler. Tradition is not, or culture is not the worship of ashes, but the continuation of the fire, So, you keep the fire going, but to keep the fire going, you have to bring in new things for it to burn. So I think our fear of failure, I would almost call it, on an emotional level, first and foremost, on an individual level, limits us as a society to try out and actually build on the unique value that we have here, Then I say we need appreciation for culture. So last summer I tried to buy a guitar in Montenegro. And I was told maybe if I go to Podgorica I can buy one, along the coast. That tells you where the arts stand in our communities. They are an afterthought. I remember being told, why do you want to learn an instrument? Do something proper. I think we disregard the value of art and culture and what it means for human evolution and also social and economic evolution. If you look at the big cities around this world, where do property prices rise the fastest? It's where the artists live. It's where the artists live because the money chases that. Why? Because art is life affirmative. And I think, of course, with the history that we have here, with the way things went, sometimes our mentality is not life affirmative enough. We focus on the things that don't work. We focus on the things that hurt us. We focus on in the past and in the present. We focus on the things that limit us. And I think art can really break that cycle, because art is inherently saying yes to life in its most recent form, because art is expressed in the moment. So yeah, I think we need a lot more of that. And innovation, innovare from Latin means to bring the new into the old. It just means also the willingness to let go of what I know, and let something new in, And I think a mistake we often make is we think there's this term modern, that I hear a lot, Modern and innovate is not the same. Modern is a particular way of being, postmodern, modern. Innovation means I bring something new to the old. It doesn't mean that I have to let go of the old completely. I can build on the old. So when I speak of innovation, I'm not talking about letting in American influences or German influences or French influences. I'm talking about going within ourselves and from our own middle, from our own perception, from our own way of being, evolve the next expression. So do something that is profoundly honest and authentic to this nation, because I think, the diversity we have here, the value we have here, the people we have here is so rich. I think that if we would value who we are and what we have, both, not just what we have, but who we are also, and who we are in combination with each other, I think we could be something phenomenal.